Hey, good morning. Welcome to Vince, brought to you by Blackout Coffee, the official coffee of all of us here at Silverlock. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/Vince. Use the code Vince, that's VINCE, and you're going to get 20% off your first order. Love it, baby. Thank you, Blackout. Hey, we got a big show for you today. We got Senator Ron Johnson stopping by. I have a lot to talk about with him, including, is he going to support the big, beautiful bill in the end? What's it going to take to get him there? He just met with the President of the United States. We'll find out more about what that meeting was like. Also, we do have some huge news out of Wisconsin as it relates to the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the chances of the left conducting yet another election rigging. I'm going to get to all of that today. Also, the President of the United States just wrapping up the NATO summit, returning home, and he's doing it with a bunch of victories, including now he's got the international community calling him daddy. I don't even know how he achieved that, but that's a bonus. We've got that and so much more on this edition of Vince. Great to have you with us. If you haven't shared it with a friend yet, please do that. And if you're watching us live on Rumble as we speak right now, there's a like button available to you. Will you hit that for me, please? I'd like that number to get up there super high. I don't even know if it does anything, but I do like the positive affirmation that comes with thumbs up. So thank you for that. Appreciate you. Hey, this podcast is sponsored by Smalls. Heard of this, Smalls? It's cool. You know, if cats ran the news, every headline would be human fails to provide acceptable meal again. That's true. Feed them what they really want with Smalls. You can get 60% off your first order plus shipping. Head to smalls.com and use our promo code Vince for a limited time only. Smalls cat food is protein-packed, made with preservative-free ingredients that you would find in your own fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. Cats that eat Smalls have had fewer hairballs and more balanced energy and healthier weight, softer, shinier fur, and a less stinky litter box. That all sounds great to me. Smalls also has treats and snacks that you can add to your order. Smalls even has a sampler so your cat can taste everything. How about that? A sampler for a cat. Try Smalls risk-free. What are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve, healthy food. For a limited time, because you're a Vince listener, you can get 60% off your first Smalls order, plus free shipping by using my code Vince. That's 60% off when you head to smalls.com and use that promo code Vince. Again, promo code Vince for 60% off your first order, plus free shipping at smalls.com. Yeah, we've really come a long way with these NATO press conferences, or these NATO summits, rather, haven't we? Remember what it used to be like? Remember when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, and then he would show up at events with NATO, and then he would just wander. He would just wander away as the parachute team was trying to descend. He would fall asleep. Do you see what I'm, Guy? Do you see what I'm showing here? Look at this. This is President Biden. He's wandering off. He's got the parachute team with him. That was what the NATO summit looked like in the past. There he is. Bye, Biden. Bye. Where are you going, Joe? Hey, Joe, come back. Hey, Joe, come back. No. Over this way, Joe. Over this way. You got to look at the camera. Yeah, Joe has no idea what he's doing. And he had no idea what he was doing. He was completely vacant. That was what it used to be like. And now we have a massive change here. Thank the good Lord. Everybody, Joe looks so confused. Now we have a massive change here because NATO is actually taking the President of the United States seriously again. So seriously that instead of just doing 2% of their spending now on defense, everyone has agreed that they will do 5% of their GDP on defense spending in order to protect their countries and their regions of the world. NATO is a European multilateral alliance. It was started in order to fight back against the Soviet Union. And nowadays it's used for all sorts of foreign adventures. But recently the big thing has been that the war in Ukraine has been shouldered almost entirely by the United States giving the lion's share of the support to Ukraine over these last few years. Where have the European countries been? How many of them have been whining about, if Putin barrels over Ukraine, he's coming for us next, he's going to invade the rest of Europe? If you actually believe that, then act like it. Support Ukraine then, if that's what you want to do. If you want to dump a bunch of money in there, you want to have defense spending up, do it. But that's not what they've been doing. Instead, as always, a bunch of deadbeat countries have allowed the United States to come in and run the whole show and rescue everybody. That's been the plan. And under President Trump's first term and now subsequently under his second term, he said, no more. We're not doing that anymore. And as a result, this NATO summit included every one of these countries saying, we're getting up to 5%. And with this summit has come a lot of respect for President Trump, a lot of respect, more respect than we even saw in his first term. And we saw quite a bit. The previous NATO Secretary General was a guy by the name of Jens Stoltenberg, and he would frequently thank President Trump for getting these countries to start raising their spending in order to meet their NATO commitments. But it's nothing like it is today, because the new NATO Secretary General is a guy called Mark Rutte, and he has been absolutely gushing with praise for President Trump for what he's done to both strengthen that alliance and get these guys to pony up more money. And so when the president arrives with his team this week, all of these countries step forward and say, I'm paying 5% now. We're doing 5% now. And a lot of warm feelings for the president. In fact, so warm that the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte yesterday, in a hilarious moment, was referring to President Trump as Daddy Trump. And this, of course, kicked off a series of very hilarious events. Here is cut one, the NATO Secretary General saying, yeah, you're Daddy. You're Daddy. Watch.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
Then Daddy has to use a strong language sometimes. Sometimes Daddy has to. That's the NATO Secretary General. He's having a great time. He's like, yeah, you know. And what Trump's talking about, of course, is, do you like that? You like when I do the accent, or you like his accent? Either way, I think it's funny. Yeah, the accent really crushes. Yeah, thank you. Guy says he likes both. He's appreciative of both. But Mark Rutte, yeah, getting in there and saying, it's even better when Daddy gets involved, which is hilarious. And that's because President Trump the other day he said, look, these guys are fucking around, right? Isn't that what he said about Iran and Israel? And they need to stop. And they stopped. They stopped. Trump, by the time Trump got to Marine One, he was getting calls from Benjamin Netanyahu going, okay, we're backing off. We're slowing down. The Iranians stopped too. So big ceasefire this week that's held for the past few days because of President Trump's efforts. And so Mark Rutte has been complimentary of that. And said, yeah, look, Daddy got involved and he knocked it all down. He cleaned this stuff up. So then the president goes on to a press conference where he's flanked by his Secretary of State and his Secretary of Defense. And Marco Rubio, you got to watch this guy's face. Boy, we've come a long way from Marco Rubio and Trump sharing a stage where they're debating with one another and Rubio's sweating like crazy. Now Rubio's cool as a cucumber. I haven't seen that guy sweat in years. And as he's standing up here, he is cracking up as some reporter asks President Trump about being called Daddy by the NATO Secretary General. Take a look at this. Cut two.
The NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you Daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No?
Do you
He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Daddy, you're my daddy, he says. And this woman asked, you see Marco Rubio just absolutely cracking up during this Q&A. Really funny. I love that Trump added a little flourish to it, though. Yeah, you heard from him. He said, Daddy, you're my daddy, he said of the NATO Secretary General. I don't think that was exactly the quote, but it was really funny for the president to say that. So everybody seems to be having a good time, except for that, scold of a reporter. You really think you're daddy? You really think they're kids? How demeaning. And everybody's having a good time. Trump's having a good time. And then the same reporter from Sky News, when the NATO Secretary General got up there, Mark Rutte, she went crazy yet again. And she's like, do you really think that is an appropriate thing to do, to call him daddy, to say that? And listen to him. He takes it in stride. Take a look. Cut 3.
Today you called him Daddy, and you sent a text message to him that was gushing with praise. Is this the way that you feel that you have to act when doing business with the US president, through flattery and praise? Isn't it a bit demeaning, and doesn't it make you look weak?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a bit of a question of taste. but I think he's a good friend. And when he is doing stuff which is forcing us to, for example, when it comes to making more investments, I mean, would you ever think that this would be the result of this summit if he would not have been re-elected president? Do you really think that 7 or 8 countries who said, yeah, somewhere in the 2030s we might meet the 2%, we've now all decided in the last 4 or 5 months to get to 2%? So doesn't he deserve some praise? And when it comes to Iran, the fact that he took this decisive action, very targeted.
Yeah, so he's got a lot of praise for him. 5% spending by all the NATO countries? That's unreal. I can't even believe that's happening, says the NATO Secretary General. This guy settled up a peace right now between Israel and Iran? That's unreal. I can't even believe that's happening. Mark Rutte is basically saying to that chick, you should be calling him daddy. At this point, we should all be calling him daddy. That's the position that Mark Rutte is taking. I love it. I think the whole thing is really a hoot. It's funny. I love this. You know what I love to see about this? That the American president is getting respect and that there's gratitude. And there's some understanding that, like, hey, you know what? You want to be on the right side of anything? Be on the right side of the United States of America. That doesn't happen if Kamala Harris is in there. Nobody's calling that chick mommy. Or what was it? Mamala? There's no way. Mark Rutte is like, oh, yes, get Mamala involved. No, nothing. There's nothing like that. Trump, he calls him daddy. It's pretty good. Now, the White House thinks this is really funny. The White House is cracking up. Take a look. Here's cut 5. The White House has put together a social media package as President Trump arrives back in the United States, celebrating the whole daddy episode. Here, look at this. I just want to get your attention. Yeah. Unreal. In 5 seconds, they had this Daddy's Home Usher rendition up in no time. And here's one more thing about this that I absolutely love. The left hates every second of this. The left are furious about this. They are seething with emotional incontinence right now. They can't handle it. Just the idea. I mean, in fact, the fact that you and I think this is funny, even that is something that they're angry about. That especially angry. How could you say that? What? The left sounds like that lady from Sky News. Well, that's demeaning. How could anybody say that? That's ridiculous. And Trump wants this kind of praise, and people call him daddy, and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, the more you get pissed off by it, the more I like it. I think it's fantastic. So anyway, there's the White House moving at light speed. God bless the White House social media team whipping that thing together and welcoming the President of the United States back and ticking off Rachel Maddow all at the same time. If you can do that in one fell swoop, you're doing a good job. Doing a good job over at the White House. Daddy's home. Hilarious. We were having a lot of fun with this yesterday on the radio show too. We were doing our radio show, which you can, by the way, listen to nationwide. Go to thevinceshow.com, find your local radio listings, or rumble.com/Vince. And producer Jim on the radio show, he put together a Toby Keith rendition in order to celebrate all of the daddy coverage, which was just so super funny. Really, really good stuff. Producer Jim is unbeaten when it comes to that parody stuff. So really, really nice work, producer Jim. So anyway, the guy comes back. This is a great event. Really the big accomplishment from all of this is getting these NATO countries to spend a lot more money, and that means that we have to shoulder less of the burden, which is a fantastic development. But the cherry on top is that everybody's calling this guy daddy now, which cracks me up to no end. So I love that. Now that said, there still is all sorts of stupidity going on back home domestically over the fact that the president did disable the Iranian nuclear program, but the media don't want you to believe it. They've spent the last 48, 72 hours trying to insist that, no, this thing wasn't debilitated. The Iranian nuclear program is fine. If anything, it was only set back by a couple of minutes, but they're going to be off and running in no time. It's going to be all up and running, and basically the president is completely feckless, and what that means by implication is that the American military suck at their jobs. That decades of preparation for a strike on an Iranian nuclear facility, which of course is what the military has been doing, this is clearly in the battle plans. This is clearly something they've been working on for a long time. That all of that was for naught. They suck at their jobs, and they missed their targets. That's the media presentation over the last few days. Now, this has ticked off everybody in Trump world. This ticked off the president, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, because what they're seeing is, one, we obviously disabled Iran. Why would they come to the table and establish this peace deal with Israel right now, this ceasefire, if it weren't for the fact that their nuclear facilities were blown to bits? Of course that happened. Of course that happened. And, you know, the other big piece here is all the intelligence that these guys have seen has clearly demonstrated that they were substantially set back by these strikes, which were perfectly executed. It's crystal clear to anybody paying attention. And I want to bring you now to kind of what has been happening in the last 24 hours on this subject. One, remember, it was Natasha Bertrand. She's a CNN reporter who presented all of this first to the American people. Natasha, I'll remind you, is the same woman who, for Politico in 2020, tried to rig the election against President Trump by claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was just Russian disinformation. She was carrying the deep state's water. And that the New York Post story was somehow fraudulent. That, in other words, the New York Post piece on Hunter Biden's laptop was fake because it was based on Russian disinformation and not on something authentic. Now, of course, the New York Post was correct. And Politico, Natasha Bertrand, was lying to you. But somehow Natasha Bertrand has, of course, advanced in her career and become better paid and works for all of these cable networks now to include CNN, and is acting like you should just trust her on this story about how Iran isn't truly disabled. Well, the woman who wrote the original New York Post piece, you know, the Hunter Biden story originally, she was just on a show. It's called Two Way. And on that program, she tore Natasha Bertrand up, limb from limb. Take a look at Cut 7. Here's Emma Jo Morris, once of the New York Post, now these days of Breitbart. Take a look.
Obviously, Natasha Bertrand is a sinister liar. I go back with her because she literally pulled an intelligence operation on the country regarding my reporting. She is known for just uncritically.
Okay, I'm sorry to stop you just because I want to add a little context. This is a CNN reporter who wrote the original story, but I'll say it was matched by many other people. So I understand you've got a beef with her. But
No. What was matched was that it was a document exists that has a low level of confidence that is an isolated document that was released by itself with no other scope of information of what she's talking about, and by a person who is known for uncritically parroting security state propaganda and has a long career and history of doing this.
Yeah, that's right. Don't let her off the hook. Emma Jo Morris doesn't. It's hard not to blame her. I mean, it was her reporting that was authentic, Emma Jo's was. And then this Natasha Bertrand character comes in to suggest that it was a lie, that that Emma Jo was carrying water for a foreign adversary. Meanwhile, it was Natasha Bertrand who was carrying water for the deep state. And so when you see her put out a report like this, based on leaked, classified preliminary assessments, which, again, are not final reports in any capacity, which involve an estimate that's at a range that's delivered at a low confidence, all of that context really matters, and yet it's used to try and besmirch Trump and suggest that the military failed at its job. Well, you got to look at this lady's history. Should we trust her on this? Hell no. Why would we trust her on this? Not when she's so obviously and cartoonishly and corruptly lied to us in the past. That's what Emma Jo is saying. So good for Emma Jo for sticking to that grudge, because it matters. It really matters. It tells us a big story. Now, the whole planet is dunking on this CNN report from Natasha Bertrand right now. It's not just Emma Jo Morris. Now it's the IAEA, which is coming out. The Israeli Atomic Energy Commission is coming out. The Iranians have come out. And they said, yeah, the facilities are pretty messed up, actually. They're really destroyed right now. Even the Iranians. The CIA, John Ratcliffe, came out and said that, yes, this thing is completely disabled. It was an excellent mission. And so every one of the players involved on both sides of the issue all agree that the Iranian nuclear program has absolutely been blasted into another century, and CNN wants to insist, well, they're just days away from getting it up and running. So who are you going to trust here? Who are you going to trust? I know who I'm going to trust. All right, hold on. I've got some stories for you coming up, including we've got a really important development out of Wisconsin. Democrats have been trying to rig elections there in Wisconsin to steal the United States House of Representatives. I can't overstate this, I'm telling you. And we had a huge development on that subject. And luckily for us, we have the Wisconsin Senator, Ron Johnson, coming up. I'll talk to him in just a few minutes. So a lot ahead. Before we get there, I have to thank our great sponsor, Moink. Moink Box. I'm telling you what, if you like meat and you like it from a family farm and you'd like it delivered to your door and you want it to be delicious, well, with all of that, you're going to love Moink. Moink. You know, 4 companies in the United States control 80% of the U.S. meat industry. 4. And reports tell us that China controls, of course, the largest portion of U.S. pork. Isn't that crazy that China controls our pork supply? These companies are using tactics to crush American family farms. And with the additives they're putting into our food, Americans are stuck with very sketchy meat. So what can we do about this? Well, let me tell you about Moink. They work hard on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. Moink's meat comes from animals that are actually raised outdoors. They deliver meat straight to your doorstep at great prices that you can actually afford. The animals are born and raised and harvested right here in the United States of America. Moink sent me a box, and I loved every last piece of food I got out of that thing. From the burgers to the steaks to the bacon. It is phenomenal. It tastes like, I don't know, it's just fresh. It's on a different level than the grocery store. Way better. Support American family farms. Join the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/Vince right now and get free wings for life. They're the best wings you're ever going to taste for free, but for a limited time. Spelled MOINK box.com/Vince. That's moinkbox.com/Vince. Thank you to Moink for being awesome. Okay. Let's see here. We do have, I just want to take a quick look at some of my notes here to verify what we have. Okay, let's get to Wisconsin. I think this is good. And I'll set you up with this Wisconsin story ahead of talking to Ron Johnson. And here's what we've learned. Remember back just a couple months ago, if we flash back to March, it was actually April 1st. There was a massive election in Wisconsin that captured the nation's attention. And the reason for that was because the Wisconsin Supreme Court, control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court was up for grabs. You remember this. And at the time, I was telling you that that Supreme Court case in Wisconsin, although a local race to that state, could have a deep and lasting impact on the entire country. That whoever controls the Supreme Court there could dictate the future of our country itself. And that is why Elon Musk got involved. Remember Elon Musk going to Wisconsin and campaigning ahead of the election, standing on a stage, on a rally stage, getting voters out, because Democrats already controlled the Supreme Court, and Republicans were fighting to get that control out of their hands, instead put it in the hands of normal people who would act like normal judges and not like left-wing crazy people. That was the fight. Well, it's a fight that we lost, unfortunately. It's a fight that we lost. And a lot of good people really put in a lot of time to try and make that thing happen. And Scott Pressler is one of them. You know, Elon Musk. Remember Ron Johnson, who's coming up? You'll see. Here's Ron Johnson. He was on that rally stage campaigning to try and get people to actually vote to get control of the Supreme Court there. Yeah. And so Ron Johnson, who, once again, I'll just thank here, but I'll talk to him in a few minutes about all of this. He was fighting there. But in the end, that April 1st election comes and goes. We lose. Democrats retain control. Well, that was misery-inducing, wasn't it? Because the thought at that point was like, well, Wisconsin's going to rig the entire election. And what I mean by that specifically is that there was a case that the left was putting before the court to redraw the district lines in order to steal safe Republican congressional seats away and turn them into Democrat congressional seats. Well, I approached you this morning with good news. We have a miracle update from the Associated Press about what just happened in Wisconsin yesterday. And it's this. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is now refusing to hear challenges to the state's congressional district boundaries. They're refusing to hear these challenges. Let me be clearer about this. Republicans have won this case. The liberal-controlled Wisconsin Supreme Court on Wednesday refused to hear challenges brought by Democrats seeking to throw out the battleground state's current congressional district boundaries before the 2026 midterms. The decisions made without any explanation from the court is a setback for Democrats who hope for new, friendlier district boundaries in Wisconsin as they attempt to win back control of the House next year. This is great. Democrats asked the court to redraw the maps, which would have put 2 of the state's 6 congressional seats currently held by Republicans into play. It was the second time in as many years that the court had refused to hear the challenges. Now, I will push down to one other item of this that you need to know about that's super important. The people that they defeated here, the Democrats who lost, were Mark Elias. Mark Elias, the Elias Law Group, was the lefty law firm that was involved here. Mark Elias has been involved in all of the big election rigging schemes across the country. This guy is constantly fighting not to win based on votes, but instead to win based on underhanded tactics and working the refs. Mark Elias lost. So the thing that we were on guard for, this is just one of many things, but this is a big one. The thing that we were on guard for was these lines being redrawn in a way to steal the elections for Democrats in those congressional seats. Today we get the good news. That's not happening. That's not happening. So a great discovery here and a miracle out of that Wisconsin Supreme Court. All right. In a moment, I want to get to Senator Ron Johnson, who's standing by. Meanwhile, I do have a technical question for my fellas. How does my voice sound right now? Does it sound crazy to you? It sounds crazy in my headphones. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds crazy. All right, let's fix the sound before we get Ron Johnson in here because I won't be able to understand a word he's saying. Let's see. You think it's the connection gate? Check, 1, 2. Uh-oh. All right. Well, hold on, everybody. We got to fix this. I know. I don't know what to tell you other than this is a problem. Wait a second. Look at this. Another miracle has occurred. My audio has been restored. I know the sound sucked. Thank you, chat. Chat was all over it. That was a very, very weird sound. Yeah, that was crazy. And that wasn't just a robot impression that I was doing. That was a legitimate technical error. But luckily, it's resolved ahead of the arrival of the United States Senator. Thank you, chat. Thanks for looking out for me, as always. Hey, so Ron Johnson coming up in just moments. Hey, I want to thank our sponsors today. Bone Charge, the infrared sauna blanket. It's just a phenomenal product. This thing has been a big help to me. I have a sauna at home now thanks to Bone Charge's infrared sauna blanket. It helps with muscle recovery and detoxification. It's a real game changer. I just wrap myself up in this thing, and the infrared heat works its magic. It's created a real difference in how I relax and rejuvenate. It's awesome. And then there's the red light face mask as well. My wife adores Bone Charge's red light face mask. She wears it each night. It feels great. All you got to do is charge that thing up and then put it on. You can wear it a bunch of times before you have to recharge it again, too. It's cool. And it helps with your skin's texture, reduces inflammation, and it's created fantastic results for us. It's like having a mini spa treatment right at home. Now, if you're thinking of trying these products out, you're in luck. Head to bonecharge.com. Use the code VINCE at checkout to get 15% off. Both of these products have made such a positive impact on us and our wellness routine. I'm sure you're going to love them too. Use the code VINCE at bonecharge.com and save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Our thanks to Bone Charge, as always. Also, our thanks to Helix Mattress. You know, I've upgraded to that Helix mattress, and I'm sleeping better than ever. When we first linked up with Helix, I'm probably like you. It's like, all right, I'll believe it when I experience it. We'll see. And Helix said, yeah, can we send Vince a mattress? And I was like, all right, go ahead. Send me the mattress. I'll give it a spin. We'll see. You know what? I couldn't even believe how good it was. It's the best sleep of my entire life. It's the best sleep of my entire life. I've owned a bunch of mattresses. In fact, when my wife and I first got married, we bought the cheapest, crappiest mattress we could find because it was the only one we could afford at some random store. We slept on that thing. It was like just sleeping on like lumber or something for years. The Helix mattress has totally changed our lives for the better. You're going to love Helix. Helix mattress can help you figure out which mattress is going to work best for you, too. You just go to their website, helixsleep.com/Vince to get started. Plug in your info. Do you sleep too hot? Do you snore? Do you sleep on your side? Whatever it is, they're going to help you out. Once you get your mattress delivered, you can finally get some comforting sleep. And you know a good night's sleep is really one of the best ways that you can have a better quality of life. And here's the best part for you. I can get you 27% off right now, site-wide, exclusive for listeners of Vince. That's right. Just visit helixsleep.com/Vince, and you'll get 27% off site-wide, exclusive for listeners of this show, helixsleep.com/Vince. My thanks to Helix. All right. Joining us now from the great state of Wisconsin, United States Senator Ron Johnson is on. Sir, Senator Johnson, good to have you on the show. Thank you.
Well, Vince, hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well, sir. Let me start with where I was just talking about a few moments ago, which is the Wisconsin Supreme Court has sided with Republicans and will not be redrawing the district lines now for those congressional districts ahead of the midterms in 2026. That is a huge, huge relief as far as I'm concerned. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least. You know, it might be because the Supreme Court overturned one of the rulings 9-0. Plus, I think the case for taking this case up was incredibly weak. And so even these radical left justices were tempered by the fact that the law was completely against the appeal on this case. So that's good news. Yes. But let's face it, Democrats are relentless. They won't stop their efforts. But this gave us a reprieve, at least for the next election.
Do you think that maybe those Supreme Court justices were also heeding the voice of the people? This became such a huge issue. You were on that campaign stage with Elon Musk earlier this year in that big campaign for who would control the state Supreme Court. You think maybe the justices were aware that the public was watching closely?
I doubt it. I don't think, again, the whole point of radical leftists concentrating on the courts is so they can, basically be super legislators. They can legislate from the bench. That's their goal. I can't really, again, my guess is I think the law was just probably so overwhelmingly against them even taking up the case, much less ruling to disregard the maps. And they were chastened by a 9-0 overruling of an earlier case that they decided. So, I think it's probably more just sort of reputation going, this is a bridge too far. Even us radical leftists can't go this far.
Yeah, I'll take good news where I can get it. So I'm glad to see that out of Wisconsin today, and I know you are as well. Tell me about the big, beautiful bill and where you are on that right now in the United States Senate. I know you've had concerns about spending on this thing, but you did meet with the president earlier this week. So what has come from these conversations?
Well, let me start with the fact the big, beautiful bill was dealt a horrible blow here this morning. I don't know the exact details when the Senate parliamentarian pretty well knocked out the major reforms to Obamacare expansion on Medicaid expansion. Okay, the thing that threatens Medicaid for the truly vulnerable, disabled children, that type of thing. So she just all of a sudden ruled that, that's more policy than budgetary. So basically what the parliamentarian is saying is you can use reconciliation to dramatically increase spending. That's budgetary. But if you're trying to decrease spending, and that's the only reason we're dealing with Medicaid this way is to decrease spending. The fact that we're mortgaging our kids' future, that's policy, and that can't be done through reconciliation. So from my standpoint, it's a crazy ruling. But in terms of where the one big beautiful bill stands, that's a real blow to it. But what I have to do is I have to lay out a few numbers just so people understand the fiscal situation, because I think most people admit we have a debt and deficit problem, but they do not want to face the depth of it. So here's the depth of it. Prior to the pandemic, for 7 years, our average deficit was $660 billion. Still way too high, but $660 billion. Then, of course, you had pandemic and a massive bipartisan spending spree. Any rational president, any rational party in power would have said, okay, that was a one-year aberration. We have to return to pre-pandemic levels. So now what Biden and the Democrats did, they had average deficits of $1.9 trillion for the next 4 years. We went from $4.4 trillion of spending to $6.5 for COVID and never looked back. This year we'll spend $7 trillion, next year about 7.3. It's a 58% increase. So that's where we are today. The CBO baseline, and people can quibble about how they score things, but their baseline estimates are as good as anybody's guess, projects 10-year deficit's $21.1 trillion. And that's assuming about a $3 to $4 trillion increase in tax revenue from letting the tax cuts expire. So that goes from 21.1 to about $24 trillion, right? So that's the score of the one big beautiful bill. $24 trillion of deficits over the next 10 years, $2.4 trillion off of an average prior to the pandemic of $660 billion. So that's what I'm just not willing to accept as a new normal. And as much as I appreciate what the House did, I agree with most of what they've done in the one big beautiful bill. It just doesn't do enough. And now the Senate parliamentarian is kicking out some of the things the House did. So it's even more meager in terms of responding to the enormous debt and deficit issue we have. So that's where we're at. We're trying to clean up an enormous mess by Democrats. It's really hard to do, and we're seeing exactly how hard it is to do.
Okay, let's take this piece by piece. I want to start with the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian is an unelected official who's making these calls. Her name is Elizabeth McDonough. She was appointed to that role by Harry Reid. So if I'm putting the pieces together, a Harry Reid appointee is meddling with the legislation in order to make it even less palatable for your vote right now?
Well, she also meddled with the Democrats' reconciliation bill, didn't allow them to increase the minimum wage and other things as well. So as I've seen her over the last 15 years, she seems to be pretty even-handed. Again, I don't have a massive complaint. I have a complaint about just the rules and how stupid so many of them are. But this is a real head scratcher right here. It's like she's allowed increased spending, but now she won't let us to decrease spending. And again, we just haven't had a brief from our leadership. I don't know what the arguments were made, exactly what this ruling means. Want to sort that out before I comment further.
But she's not the last word on this, though, is she? Because obviously she's not. It's up to the leadership in the Senate whether or not they take her seriously. John Thune and the leaders, they can override her if they wanted to, couldn't they? And so what I'm confused by is why John Thune weeks ago took that off the table. Over 3 weeks ago now, he said that's not going to happen before we had even heard from her. Why would he do that?
So one thing Republicans are pretty unanimous in is we do not want to eliminate the filibuster in the Senate. The filibuster has prevented us from being a socialist nation. Now, we would have been decades ago had Democrats been able to just bull things through with simple majority. So that recognition of minority rights has kept government from growing faster than it already has. So we don't want to see the elimination of the filibuster, even though it frustrates what we want to do as well. That's why John Thune said that. We wouldn't have the votes to do it. So again, I understand the president has railed against this. I know members of the House want us to do it. I guess I just say we're a little more level-headed, recognizing what the ramifications of that might be long term.
Okay. All right. So let me go back to your conversations with the White House and how we might be able to cut this spending. I totally agree with you that we need to get back to, at the very least, pre-COVID levels of spending. It's absurd that we're still at COVID levels. And we need to get rid of this $37 trillion of debt. It's pressing. But as you know, we're in the midst of a home invasion of our country right now that needs to be resolved. And this big, beautiful bill contains the means to eject these illegal foreign nationals with a lot more haste than we're seeing at the moment, which is why one of the many reasons this bill is great, in my view. Sir, is it possible to achieve the spending cuts that you're asking for correctly outside of the big, beautiful bill? In other words, the big, beautiful bill should only be a piece of getting control of this government. Can't we use other means, including rescissions, to get the government spending under control?
We can in bits and pieces. So again, you can't do it all within reconciliation because all you can deal with then is mandatory spending. But we have $1 trillion of other mandatory spending, not Social Security, not Medicare, not even Medicaid, $1 trillion. We are spending, I think the number is $239 billion more in other mandatory than we spent in 2019, completely plussed up for population growth and inflation. And that's $239 billion that we haven't even looked at. The House didn't look at it. We just haven't looked at it. And we should look at it, okay? But no, this is hard work. It's going to take rescissions. It's going to take probably continuing resolutions. The Democrats aren't going to pass appropriation bills unless we dramatically increase spending. Again, our problem is it's easy to be a Democrat. It's easy to spend money we don't have. It's easy to mortgage your kid's future, particularly when the media doesn't hold you accountable. They wipe your fingerprints clean of the messes that you create. It's just really hard to rein that all back in, but we have to. But no, this is going to be a tough slog. And one of my biggest problems with the one big beautiful bill is it's structured right now. It's a one and done. It basically uses up all of our leverage we would have to get our big spenders in our party to come back to the table and reduce spending further. So if you extend the current tax law, if you take care of SALT, if you take debt ceiling off the table, if you give President Trump all of his priorities and new tax cuts and plus there's a lot of little ornaments on this tree. There's a lot of other little goodies that increase the deficit. When you give everybody all those things, this is it. This is our one opportunity. And our one opportunity right now, according to CBO, takes our average deficit from $2.1 trillion up to 2.4. And finally, the administration can say, well, we're going to have $3 trillion of tariff revenue. Okay, that brings us back to $2.1 trillion deficits. Again, you have to, even the White House memo, this is in my 30-page report where I lay out all these scenarios, even the White House memo, which is a pretty, I would call rosy scenario of the one big beautiful bill, says the average deficit over the next 10 years would be 18.6 or $1.86 trillion per year, just slightly under Biden's level. Again, I cannot accept that as the new normal. And it is disappointing to me that so many of my fellow colleagues are willing to accept that.
Okay, but I want to dwell on rescissions for a moment because I do feel like the way rescissions is being talked about right now is as if it's just like a petty cash thing. It's a very small way to cut some spending, but most of it has to be done in some other means. The reason why, as far as I can tell, rescissions is such an important power is because it doesn't have a filibuster blocking it. It's a simple majority vote in the United States Senate. The president can present cuts that he wants made to spending, and then Congress can pass it by simple majority. That sounds like an awesome superpower that doesn't require any negotiation with Democrats whatsoever. And right now, there's a $9 billion starter cut package before the United States Senate. It hasn't been voted on yet. It's supposed to be voted supposedly in mid-July. But is this, Senator Johnson, like a real deal vehicle to cut some massive spending? It certainly feels like it could be.
It is, and quite honestly, a lot of us have been pressing the administration to set up more rescission packages for more dollar amounts. I have no idea why we haven't already passed this in the Senate. I really couldn't answer that question. I will say one problem with rescissions, it's only for 1 year. So you can rescind the spending for this year, but then looking ahead to next year, again, I don't believe the Democrats are going to engage in an appropriation process that'll control spending. So we'll probably have to operate in a continuing resolution. Even that's going to be difficult to pass. You won't be able to pass it if you include the rescissions in the continuing resolution. So again, it's a 1 year temporary reduction in spending. And that's why the reconciliation process is important, because now you're addressing things like other mandatory spending. You can make changes to the Obamacare portion of Medicaid, which puts at risk Medicaid for the disabled children, the truly vulnerable. We can repeal that portion of Obamacare. But again, we've got Republican members who vowed to repeal Obamacare who are not willing to do the same thing with the Obamacare addition to Medicaid, because it's going to harm their states, because the states have taken that Obamacare addition and they've gamed the system. They're sucking down federal revenue because you have a 9-to-1 match in Medicaid for single, able-bodied, working-age, childless adults. So for every dollar we spend on a disabled child, the state spends on a disabled child, the federal government on average kicks in $1.33. For every dollar the state spends on a single, able-bodied, working-age, childless adult, we kick in 9, which is why states have ramped up things like provider taxes, provider fees. That's not health care. But the federal government kicks in $9 for every $1 the state chips in on provider taxes. I mean, it's a total scam. It's a total legal fraud. And we're apparently going to let that happen because states have structured their budget around that scam. Hospitals have structured their budgets around that scam. Everybody needs that free federal money continue to flow. And we don't have enough Republican colleagues that are willing to, get a spine and just say, no, this is fraud. This is legalized stealing. And we're not willing to do that, unfortunately. And now the parliamentarians said what meager steps we took in that direction can't be included in reconciliation. So I don't know how we sort that out.
You're very right about that. But sir, are you going to allow your legitimate concerns about spending stop the ability to get 20 million illegals out of the country and stop the permanence of the Trump tax cuts? Because if these tax cuts expire this year, that means a 22% raise on Americans' taxes on average.
Vince, if it were up to me,
are you going to allow your concerns about spending to stop that?
If it were up to me, that would have already been done. And that's what the Senate would have done. We would have done a couple bills. I always said 3, handle the border, defense, take $850 billion in real spending reductions. Step 1, step 2, extend current tax law, take that automatic tax increase off the table, then come back and do this really difficult, complex, one big beautiful bill. We should have already done that. We could have already done that. That's not the decision that was made. So now we're dealing with this, and it's a mess. It's a mess.
Right.
So maybe what we'll have to do is skinny it all up again, go back to the Senate proceeding. I'd be fully supportive of that. That may be where this is heading, quite honestly. And I'd totally support that.
Okay. And then if you do make dramatic changes in the Senate, which of course even the parliamentarian is doing it as we speak, what are the chances that it then passes through the House? Because obviously it passed on a slim margin to begin with. That's the math that needs to be in your mind as well, right?
Well, in my business career, I was, dealt with the KISS principle, right? Keep it simple. So I think the simpler we make this, the easier it's going to be able to pass, because if you hold out, okay, this is for sure just first step. It's not a one and done. There's a lot more we have to do.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, pass the things that must be passed. Do it now. And then because of parliamentarian, because we haven't come to terms with these things, because we're not addressing the problem, come back and do that later. We've got plenty of opportunities. We're using the fiscal 2025 reconciliation process. We can have 3 separate bills even in that, but then you've got fiscal year 2026. We should be arguing over their appropriations right now. So we've got reconciliation for them as well. So again, this is eminently doable. My advice, let's skinny this thing up. Let's make it simple. Let's get this passed. Let's start coming back. And now that we've gone through this process, seeing what we can do in reconciliation, what we can't do, what we can modify, let's take another bite of this apple in a few months.
Okay. And Senator Johnson, finally, I know the president wants to have this thing passed by Independence Day. You've indicated publicly that you think that that's unlikely. What can you tell us what your conversation was like with the president? What is he saying to you, and where are the two of you in this subject?
Very cordial. Listen, I truly like the president. I keep telling people, anybody that spends any time with the president cannot not like him. It's just true. I mean, the guy is charming. He's funny. He's engaging. I totally sympathize with how difficult his job is. I told him I don't want to make it any harder. I'm so concerned about the mortgage of our kids' future. So is he. He's in a slightly different position. He just wants this thing passed. Our leaders are in slightly different position. I'm in a position to try and demand more. He realizes I'm trying. He said he wanted the Senate to make the bill better. I want to make it much better. The parliamentarian just made it a lot worse. So again, that's the reality situation. But the good news is, we respect each other. I want to see him succeed. I want to see America succeed. I am so glad he's president. I told him that in terms of the decision he made, the tough decision to strike Iran, that was the right decision, made the world safer. God bless him for doing it. So again, just a very pleasant, enjoyable hour-and-a-half meeting with the president in the Oval Office with myself, eventually Mike Lee and Rick Scott joined us. We're kind of the problem children right now, but not really, because he recognizes we just want to help him and America succeed.
Okay. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, you're always in the middle of it all, so thank you for spending some time with us today, sir. Appreciate you for that.
Have a great day.
You too. There he is, Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin right now, who is one of the obstacles at the moment for the big, beautiful bill to pass, at least in the short term. He clearly wants spending cuts. Clearly. You heard him say it the whole conversation. I can't agree more with the need to rein in the federal government. But as I mentioned, I do think that there's a way to do this that's not all contained with the big, beautiful bill. This, of course, is the conversation that you and I have been having for the entire existence of this big, beautiful bill. Those rescissions matter. And the White House has sent over a $9 billion package that cuts NPR and USAID and PBS. And it passed out of the House, albeit it took slower. It was slower than I wanted it to be. by the time it passed out of the House. And now the United States Senate has to consider it. And John Thune has put the brakes on that thing until apparently after the big, beautiful bill is passed. But it's such an easy test. Can you cut $9 billion in spending that everybody agrees should be cut, or at least normal people agree should be cut? While these guys debate the big, beautiful bill, I think John Thune should have jumped the line with this and just said, yeah, let's cut that spending. Let's knock that out right now. But he didn't. What the hell's going on? How is this like pulling teeth to get even the most measly amount of spending cuts? So in that sense, I share Ron Johnson's distaste for Congress's behavior, which is like, hey, cut some spending. But here's priority one for me. We're in the midst, as I just said to the senator, we're in the midst of a home invasion right now. We're in the midst of a full-blown home invasion of our country. And so, again, you can sit around the table and talk about the massive debt that your family's in, but if people start smashing through your doors, you got to get to work. You got to lock down your home again. And that's where we are as a country. So I hope whatever it takes to get this thing across the finish line is achieved. I hope Ron Johnson can be a yes vote on this. I hope all these guys could be yes votes on this in order to get this passed, because this is the agenda that we all voted for, right? This is the president's agenda contained in that one big, beautiful bill. And I get it. Ron Johnson has some other ideas on ways this can be done, but it's a Senate, right? It's a House, it's a Congress where all these guys have to work together and cobble together the way that it can actually get out the door. So we'll see. So our thanks to Senator Ron Johnson for coming on and talking to this audience. It's not a small thing, and we're very grateful for that. Okay, let me see. I've got an update for you on President AutoPen that I want to get to. We've got earlier this week, one of President Biden's top officials by the name of Neera Tanden testified to the House Oversight Committee about what was going on while Joe Biden was in office and who was actually running the show. And Neera Tanden admitted this week that she was wielding the auto pen. That it was her. That she was, quote, authorized to make decisions about the use of the auto pen. And she claims in the midst of all of this that, there was middlemen who were telling her to use it, and she wasn't talking to the president directly. Okay, so what you're revealing to us, Neera Tanden, is that Biden wasn't even directly involved in auto pen decision-making. You weren't even talking to him about this. You were just signing documents with his name on them, and Biden wasn't even actively engaged. We've got a huge problem on our hands here. You've got a huge problem on your hands, Neera Tanden, given what you did. Signing legislation, signing pardons, signing executive orders with the same robotic signature over and over and over again. This is a full-blown constitutional crisis. Full-blown constitutional crisis. Did my audio just pop again? Robo voice is back. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Yeah, the robot voice is back. Let's play video of Neera Tanden. Here's video.
Willfully lying to the American people about the condition of the President of the United States, which went on for 4 years in this country by all of your colleagues.
Totally wrong. That is totally wrong. That is totally wrong.
I hope you read all the books that are coming out. I hope you read all the books that are coming out.
Joe Biden, when asked about soldiers lost, was briefed and said it. And so you think Joe Biden had problems? At least he was able to do that. What's the excuse for Donald Trump if he's so capable?
I'm just saying.
I mean,
you guys
I don't know if
upset
you're a judge.
that Trump is exhibiting some, I want to get more facts, and I'm going to be lectured by the people who lied to the American people about the condition of the president?
Oh, my God.
No way.
No, but
not going to take
that's first of all, that's outrageous. That's outrageous. Yes, it is.
You think the truth was told? You think the truth was told?
I will say.
Did the White House tell the truth?
I look forward to this discussion.
Do you all believe the truth was told about Biden?
Scott, do you want government or do you want your lick back? Because even if all of that happened in the past, we're in the present now. So we need a president that is capable.
And so what? He said, I don't know. What did it hurt your life that he said, I don't know?
One time? Biden did it. Biden did it.
Sure,
Biden
I can.
did it. You
of course I can.
That for 4 years.
I absolutely can.
The country to move forward.
I 100% can.
Yeah, all right, so you got an entire panel of crazy people, but that was earlier this year. Scott Jennings, once again, Leonidas and the Hot Gates just defending, just battling everybody all at once. But among them, that woman, Neera Tanden, who you heard there, she's saying, there's no evidence that Biden was non-compos mentis. Yeah, there was a mountain of evidence, and you were a part of the cover-up. And now we find out that Neera Tanden was operating the auto pen in lieu of Joe Biden even doing the job. All right? So that's the revelation this week. Now, we are supposed to get a bunch more testimony from Biden officials one by one appearing before the House Oversight Committee in order to tell something to these members of Congress behind closed doors about the way this was all going down. I've got an update, though. After Neera Tanden's disastrous testimony for the Biden people, where she admitted that Joe Biden wasn't involved in the auto pen and that she was wielding it herself, suddenly, Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden's work husband, that's who this guy is known as, her senior advisor, Anthony Bernal, who was supposed to testify today, Thursday, he has suddenly called off his testimony. Not going to do it. Anthony Bernal, the Daily Caller reports here, senior advisor to Jill Biden, has refused to testify in the House Oversight Committee's investigation now into former President Biden's cognitive decline. Bernal is refusing to appear for today, that June 26th interview, as a part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Biden's mental decline. He's running scared, the Oversight Committee says. The cover-up is collapsing. We will subpoena him. Good. I don't know why they didn't start with subpoenas. Why are we playing nice with these guys? They covered up the president's inability to think in order to seize power from him and conduct a constitutional crisis. You think these guys are going to be doing this in good faith? And then they watched as Neera Tanden comes waltzing into the congressional hearing, thinking that she's going to talk her way out of it. And by the way, this White House, God bless him, waived executive privilege and said, you don't get to claim that. You don't get to claim that from the Biden era. Sorry, no executive privilege for you, said the Trump administration. So Neera Tanden was left with nothing but having to answer those questions under oath this week. And boy, did she reveal some crap. She revealed it. And now Anthony Bernal not showing up. James Comer, sharply criticized Bernal on Wednesday for refusing to appear before the committee, accusing him of avoiding accountability now that his executive privilege has been waived. That's right, the White House waived his executive privilege too. It's abundantly clear that Jill Biden's so-called work husband never intended to appear, to be transparent about Joe Biden's cognitive decline and the ensuing cover-up. With no privilege left behind, Mr. Bernal is now running scared, desperate to bury the truth. The American people deserve answers and accountability. You're damn right, James Comer. Accountability is the word that I'm obsessed with, that the chat's obsessed with, that every listener to this program is obsessed with. I am done with strongly worded reports and letters. I'm done with begging and pleading. I'm done with kindness. All I want are hardcore, criminally enforced subpoenas, and I want consequences for the people who hurt our country. Is that so much to ask? Is it so much to ask that we restore justice to a country that once had it? That's what we want back. Yes, Shreve One Ram says enough of the lip service. Everybody here. Accountability. And then E. Duncan 16 says Joe Biden is a cuck. Joe Biden's being cuckolded, apparently by the work husband, Anthony Bernal. That's the suggestion there. That's an amusing comment on which to go out. Hey, thank you for joining us here. I've got, of course, so much more to do. We've got another big show tomorrow for you right here on Vince. You can watch it live, rumble.com/Vince, or you can listen wherever you get a podcast. Please be sure to tell a friend about it. It's fun. Oh, and if you're watching this show, and if you just happen to stumble upon it, you can subscribe either on Rumble or on the podcast. Please do. We'd love to have you. It's a great crew. Have you met the chat? They're amazing. It's good to have you with us today. Got the big radio show coming up, 12 to 3 Eastern time each day, rumble.com/Vince, or find it on thevinzshow.com. That's where you can find your local radio listings. This is always a privilege. I'm glad we got to do it again today. Thanks for being with me. Up next, Steven Crowder, hopefully with working microphones, right here on Rumble.